welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing My Beautiful Laundrette. We saw this production at Leicester Curve on the 24th of February 2024. My Beautiful Laundrette is a play by Hanif Qureshi, based on his groundbreaking 1985 Oscar-nominated film of the same name. And the production features original music composed by the Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe. Directed by Nicole Behan and original production by Nikolai Foster. This is part of the Theatre Nation Partnership Initiative. So Richard, what's it all about?
Set in South London during the Thatcher years, My Beautiful Laundrette tells the story of Omar. After confrontation with a racist gang, including his former school friend Johnny, Omar uses their history to defuse the situation. Against a backdrop of nationalism, racial tensions, financial crisis and political turmoil, the pair come together to transform a rundown laundrette and realise their feelings for one another.
But first, our post-show opinion!
My Laborious Laundrette.
This production needs reprogramming for a different cycle.
So with all that said, let's...
Set the scene!
Right, Richard, My Beautiful Laundrette, would you like to set the scene? Let's let everybody know what we saw when we took to our seats in the auditorium. See, I got all that in for you, so you don't have to say it.
Well, we were surrounded by what looked like concrete walls, really, with almost a dystopian look of... today's word's dystopian.
Yes.
Dystopian look of washing machines turned into bricks, really.
Yeah. It's just the front side of them, not the front panels, just wedged into the walls.
Yeah. With a bit of scaffolding at the back and a lounge chair almost, with a leather-bound one, with a washing machines used as what looks like furniture as well. And then around the stage there was, actually for the preset, there was members of the cast just sat and milling about the stage, really.
Hung about, yeah. The actual state of the concrete, to put that into context, it kind of reminds you of like theme park,
yeah,
right? You know, that sort of material that they use.
Basically half a wall and then it's broken off at the top, so it sort of leads you to make your mind that it goes further up, but actually it's all broken at the top. And I suppose it's really to symbolise sort of broken, run down the worlds in the like places in the north in the 80s, really.
Do you think that? Let's just talk about the set then, because saying that, I wasn't particularly bowled over by this appearance of the set. I didn't think it looked that... I don't say enticing, because I know based on the actual set and the premise, I mean, when I say set, I mean the film, it wasn't enticing.
I think for me it was probably a bit too literal, because yes, it's about a laundrette, but the laundrette doesn't feature till further into the production than the first part. So maybe if some of these set pieces would turn around and become the laundrette, that would have looked better, whereas it actually was literally in the starting blocks of the production.
It could have just been like a bare stage,
exactly.
To begin with,
yeah,
with other things brought on. But I suppose they used the concrete things just so the gangs could hang around. But again, do you think it needed it? I don't.
No, I don't.
I think it made it look worse.
I think sometimes the reason I say the words, like, you know, the literal use of washing machines and this, that and the other, it felt like it was always set in the laundrette when actually it wasn't. There was, you know, most of the scenes at the start were in different places, and that's where it looked confusing, because you were almost like you're thrust into the laundrette straight away, and it needed to sometimes just strip back a little bit.
Yeah. And also, when the two leads managed to get into this sort of working relationship of doing the laundrette up bit by bit, you never really saw much of a change.
No.
Where they made something of it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It never looked as good, because all the movable washing machines that they had, I think they had about 3, they all looked trashy and the same.
Yeah, exactly.
They were never like cleaned up and you had new ones there.
No.
The walls at the back, because they were already like a backdrop, shall we say, they were always grotty.
Yeah,
they were always
they didn't
manky.
there was no improvement at all.
No, the only thing that changed were these pipe lighting that we saw hanging about. They glowed to say powders, like they had the new lighting installed once they took over. But that was it really, to represent any change. And it's annoying from the start because you already see them preset. You're just waiting for them to turn on.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
it's going to happen.
They didn't come down or come up from one did come up from behind, but it was already half up anyway, so you could see that there was something behind there. You already saw everything waiting to happen, so there wasn't much things being kept back.
Well, there was no definite transition, and that can really hinder a production. You didn't see any shift, and that can make it quite disorientating anyway, because you could already see the laundrette sign in the background ready to be raised. You could see, and I understand an exposed set, and I understand showing you the elements before they're brought together, but in this production I think it did detract from what was happening. It was very difficult to look at it in different spaces because it didn't pull it all together when it needed to.
Yeah.
Because you could have had elements of this where when they became building blocks, they all came together to be the laundrette, and they could have been spread out. They could have spun round with different things on the other side of them, but then when they're all lined up together, they looked like the laundrette, but this didn't have that look.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this one was, because this one was a double bill with Bonnie and Clyde that we saw together. I don't know if I came into this with full energy. I knew the storyline and I knew what to expect, but then, I don't know, with the excitement of the posters and the programmes, it all looked quite interesting.
When you walked in, it did look visually impressive, but once you started watching the production, you start to see its flaws with the staging of it. I think that's where it went for me. It matched the aesthetics of the poster or the program, but then when it started to become obvious that we weren't always in one space, because it was written from a film, this could have been changed into a production that was a bit like Steel Magnolias, a bit like productions in that way where they're always in one room.
Yeah.
As in, Steel Magnolias is always set in the hairdressers.
Yep.
It never leaves the hairdressers. Whereas this was confused in the sense of it wasn't always set in the laundrette. It was all other places.
It had outside spaces, yes, absolutely.
And you struggled to know which space you were in because there was no definite change between each space.
Which is why I think they would have been best getting rid of the internal walls on the set.
Exactly.
With the washing machines in, because it's I think like what you said earlier, it's too obvious. We know, obviously, it's like the laundrette. We don't necessarily need to have them pinned into the concrete to represent stuff. We're not stupid. We know what we're coming to see.
And I think when you watch the film, you can see a definite upgrade from the run down laundrette to the actual new, fresh, pristine, clean laundrette, and you can see that difference. Whereas this, it just felt little. The only difference we had was
with a couple of lights and a few balloons.
Yeah, exactly.
And champagne. Yeah, I think it could have. I think less is more.
Totally.
On this one, and I think for me, having the thought about how to make the change from a dirty laundrette to a beautiful laundrette, shall we say, that could have been made into something. Rather than it have the outsides of things, because technically you don't really need any of that. If you removed the whole set dressing and just had a chair on one side, an office chair over the other, and then the scaffolding at the back, you don't necessarily need all this stuff. But we're more engaged with those characters and where they are then.
But I think as well, drawing attention to the side wings, Stephen, I think for me that's where you could have had two different spaces wheeled out from the side, because I thought those wings might have moved. Yeah. Those L-shaped wings at the side could have been two other spaces, like the other rooms that you needed. Yeah. But it almost felt like when you started realising, actually, all that was to do was to hide the legs of the lighting stands.
Yeah.
It wasn't really any more than just to detract from that area. So it felt wasted,
But again, if they needed somewhere for the gangs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
What they call it, like the white racists
Yeah.
or whatever the gang.
The supremacists.
Yeah, whatever they were called.
Nationalists.
Yeah, national. You could have just had like scaffolding or bars all the way around, right at the back.
Yeah.
So they could have had I suppose just a climbing frame. So they could have hung around and whatever all the way around at the back as a backdrop.
Yeah.
It was so visually from the get-go, what we first saw, I wasn't bowled over with the actual outlook. I just saw it looking a bit...
It's chaotic.
Yeah.
And it's not... sometimes chaos is needed, and sometimes you need that type of view. But when it's
how you do it. This is an artistic choice, and I don't think it was the right one, in my humble, unprofessional opinion. Now then.
We've started well.
Yeah. Moving on to the writing now, because this was written by Hanif Qureshi, and it's based on his own film as well. So how do you feel, because you've seen the film as well, how do you feel that this has translated to the stage? Because a lot of films that we have seen never seem to translate well.
No, and I think this is a victim of that. I think maybe trying to update the script for the stage, but also changing some of the structure of the original film for the stage. I just felt it actually took away some of the power of the film. The film was very, low budget film, but that doesn't detract from the fact of what it was and why it was made in the time it was made. And I do think it
was actually an addictive film.
It was.
When I went to watch it, I was hooked.
Yeah, but I think as well, it felt edgy in the sense of this is a subject that wouldn't normally be approached, to have a sort of a gay storyline within the Asian culture, as well as a crossover to a British white guy. And I think what was lost on the stage compared to the film was I'm going straight in, aren't I? I think there was too many times when we saw almost too much on stage.
Yeah.
And less is more when it came to the writing, I think. It was quite restrained in the film, where it left the audience to fill the gaps in rather than be shown it. I think for me, there was some near misses in the film where they nearly got intimate, or you got the suggestion of it, but it didn't actually happen.
Well, in the film, Daniel Day-Lewis just pushed Gordon Warneck up against a building in this alleyway and passionately kissed him. And that was the first visual representation that there was definitely something there, obviously, that happened before, because that kiss kind of confirmed that they had been intimate before, maybe at school. Have you finished having your sweets? We're just going to have a whole audio track of you eating your sweets.
That's the last one. I think that scene that you're describing is, it was in the dark. It was like in an alleyway, and it was almost they'd looked around to see if anybody was watching because they didn't want to be seen. And I think this one felt more like the stage version. It was very quick to have that intimacy. And there was no build-up to that moment. There was no intrigue or no missed chance. It was all just...
I think everything was up front as well.
Yeah, it was. But I think for me, it was more all of the extra bits in the film that added to the distance between the two worlds. Because really, it's a meeting of two completely different worlds together, and you never really saw that other world in the sense of you knew that they were going off to the parents' house, like the Indian parents' house, but you never saw that. You never saw the dynamic between his uncle and his uncle's woman. You saw his uncle and the affair that he was having with this sort of woman on the side,
Rachel, I think.
Right, but you never saw the wife and the interactions that happened with that outside of this space. You never saw that there was the wife was always watching or knew about it or had those conversations. So you never had that dynamic that was there in the film. You never had the extra...
I think that's what I picked up on, because I watched this play first before the film, even though I bought the film to watch before this play came around. I just never got around to it. But I remember making the comment that it lacked a matriarchal figure.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way. And the fact that I felt there was a huge chunk of a storyline or something missing. And when I watched the film, I actually never got that. I never felt there was a lack of a matriarch, because there was more females in that film.
Yeah, exactly.
Than in the play. And I felt that they did serve a purpose. Like, even... what's her name?
Tanya.
Even Tanya in the play, I didn't understand her specific role. Because she was hanging about. She was waiting around. She was waiting to be married off. There was sort of a connection or not.
But you couldn't tell the link. You didn't know why.
No, exactly. You didn't know anything about it. Whereas, actually, from the film, they had a lot more flirting going on with from Tanya and towards Omar than there was in.
And you felt the pressure for them to almost become married. You could feel that, like,
and also
historical element to...
And also that was a connection between... Because they were in the family and they were cousins.
Yeah.
They were both being pressured on, and they both didn't want to be pressured as well. Yeah. And so there was that flirtiveness going on.
I just think they watered down some of the characters that actually would have strengthened the performance as a whole. And I think that it just lacked that extra pressure as to that you could feel that these two were almost hiding something, even though it was in plain sight. You could feel that Johnny and Omar was happening, but in the film you felt like it was there underneath. It wasn't, because it's quite an awkward love story, really. When you watch the film, it's never perfect, and I felt like there's always that moment of somebody's always going to distract or catch them out, so they were always on edge, but you just didn't feel that edge in the stage version. You didn't feel that.
Well, even in the film, I felt there was a bit where they were waiting for the father to turn up.
Yeah.
Papa to turn up, because Omar wanted him there to...
For the opening.
For the opening, to show how much of a success he's become. And obviously the uncle, Nasser, was there as well, showing off Rachel as well. Now, in the film, there was a bit where Omar and Johnny was behind the screens having a bit of fun, whilst a huge queue outside the shop were waiting to open. And
the uncle and his mistress turn up.
Nasser was sort of like having a chat with Rachel in the actual laundrette and kissing as well. So they had
a dance as well. They
were like mirroring. Well, through the mirrored screen as well, you'd see Nasser and Rachel kiss and dance, and then you'd see Johnny and Omar getting frisky as well. But I felt it was a bit, whilst it was quite poetic there, it was a bit easy in terms of showing the sexual side of Johnny and Omar.
Yeah, because for me, on the film version, Nasser caught them out, as in caught them half dressed in the back when he went round to see them.
Yeah, with no question. That's what I was going to get.
Whereas in the stage version, they were both half naked, showing themselves stuck out the back of the scaffolding, and it was to show that like mirrored view, but it was too obvious.
I think what we're sort of pussyfooting around at is the fact that it deemed acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this is what sort of confuses me in a way, where you've got the gangs and you've also got the cousin of Omar, Salim.
Yeah, Salim. Yeah.
Was it Salim? Yeah. They come across as being the thugs and the ones that are most probably going to look down on homosexuals.
Yeah.
Whereas it just seemed like we're seeing this show, this production where it's frowned upon to be homosexual is a difficult time, but we saw it as the most easiest thing. It was just a love story that It just was. It was.
But you're meant to be in the 80s, where it's not. It was never not as accepted as it is now, and that,
I mean, it did still happen and stuff, and they did get name called. I do get that, but even from the Asian side, like for NASA,
yeah, exactly.
to not even question that.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are you like naked and getting it on?
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
going on there? There
Yeah.
was, and they
Especially
were trying to marry
when they
him.
were forcing marriage. Yeah,
exactly. They were forcing him. I don't know. Maybe it just seemed a bit laughable.
I think it just didn't. It didn't feel as powerful as it could have been. It felt less, like you say, it's less of a struggle. It was less of a. It didn't feel like they got to be cloak and dagger. It was almost like, oh, it don't matter. But it did matter then.
It was very much a
but
case
it
of
did
it
matter
didn't really
then.
matter.
But it did matter. People didn't like it, and especially when you're having full family values, and it must be man and woman married. It really felt watered down. I think that's the key thing.
And I suppose in a way, it just showed that NASA didn't really see what was under his very nose in terms of the sexuality of his nephew.
No,
it wasn't an issue. If it wasn't an issue, why try to marry someone off?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think this is just a bit of a mixed. I never got this with the film. I thought it was quite a good film, and everything was done tongue in cheek with the timing wise.
Yeah,
because they did highlight what sort of a friend is Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is he hanging around? He's good to have, and it wasn't until Johnny could be of use to NASA and Salim that they used
as a hired hand almost.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite understanding.
I think the other thing was the test that Salim gave in the film. Salim was testing Omar on getting some money back because he owed money because of the drugs he'd not sold, or he'd given them away, or whatever had happened. And when they actually Johnny fell into his old ways and went and robbed a house of a load of equipment and stuff. And it was actually the reason I'm saying this is it was Johnny and Omar in the film that actually did that house. They stole equipment from a house, like video recorders and hi-fis and stuff. But in the actual stage, this stage production, it was the British nationalists and Johnny who went and did the raid of the house, not Omar.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he'd done this for him because of the love side of it. But it was like, but you've changed the thing that actually you've lost the point that Omar's actually trying to cross over into Johnny's world a little bit to show that they're equally a duo to go and do stuff like that. And it just pulled away from the fact that I don't know. I think it just changed the dynamic just to almost bring those characters into the scene when it didn't really need it. When it was, I just think their parts were almost watered down a little bit, where you didn't feel like it was as imposing, because in the film those roles of national supremacy or whatever, they felt like they were always around or always waiting to like put the windows in, and I think it didn't feel like that in the the same way.
Yeah, there was definitely something about the player I couldn't connect with.
Yeah, I'm saying.
I just felt from the start he was too eager. Like there was never a build up of his feelings towards Johnny. He knew he liked Johnny straight away, and there was a definite connection there.
But there was no level of like threat or hesitancy as, well, what if he rejects me, or what if he reacts badly to me trying it on? Never got that inclination that time's passed, maybe, and he's got a different outlook.
There was definitely a backstory there that just sort of must have been said and just fizzled out instantly.
Yeah,
there was
exactly.
a connection, because when I went to see the film afterwards, I didn't go to see it in a theatre. I got it on Blu-ray, but I mean, it was instantly there was a connection there.
Yeah.
So it was explained in the film, due to that kiss. But then when you transfer that onto the stage, it just seemed full on.
Yeah, straight away.
There
was no build-up.
Yeah.
An audience in a theatre don't need to be spoon-fed. things
I don't
like
know,
that.
because I think they quite liked it. I think they were just there for the gay love story. I think they knew what they were getting, because I think it was just...
I think to be more clever, to make it more like it took time to achieve that kiss. Almost the first kiss felt thrown away because it was almost like, oh, we've already done it. There was no journey in that relationship. Almost it was like full on straight away, and I think that's what I noticed.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's about the struggle, the journey, the character's journey. I'm not sure he struggled. I don't know if there was a struggle as such.
Well, it just felt
To
very
overcome
free
anything.
and easy, very easy to.
He knew of
yeah.
his sexuality. Everything came easy. He found someone that liked him.
Job done.
And he managed. He was able, within the Asian community,
exactly.
to be given finances or have a job, because because they're very in the culture, be successful. To be a man, you've got to be successful. Don't just work somewhere, own it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he did. He crafted something. He made something, even though it was a laundrette and it was his. It was just...
But I'm sure there was a bit in the film where Omar felt rejected and Johnny was the one that took the upper hand and kissed him. It was almost like towards the end of the film, there was a moment of more like role reversal. It's like, the eagerness had gone and he thought, well, I'm giving up because I'm going to have to marry somebody and this, that and the other. And it was actually Johnny the one that took control of that moment. And you didn't feel that. You didn't feel those levels in the staged version, I think.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. So what about the direction of this? Let's talk about the directing now, because I think we're a bit at a loss with... I'm still unsure.
I mean, for me, I'm unsure whether it's the writing or the direction that's put it into this placement, isn't it, really? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you can only direct what's written if there's not much more to go on, as in...
And I suppose it's how it's directed, and if you've got the set which is confining it...
Yeah.
You're then not allowing... I think this is it, right? In the film, you've got space because you can cut to different places, and
exactly.
you've got the time to just let things breathe and sit
exactly.
in how they need to breathe.
And I mean, I suppose it's important to mention it's not necessarily a long film.
No, it doesn't matter. It's just allowing the scene to breathe, right? Whereas in this, because you sort of like crowded everything into one set, even though it's in different spaces, you've made things claustrophobic.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if it has been directed like that, it's giving off, the set's giving off a mishmash. So I'm feeling a bit mishmashed about it.
Yeah, it's disorientating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the whole, I don't know, like following the linear journey of Omar looking after his dad, going to wash the car with his uncle, then taking on the laundrette.
Then also Tanya climbing over the set, which made no sense, sitting on the top of the wall, and there was little things where it's like, but I thought this was just to imitate walls rather than like another. Everything just felt all over the place, I think, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was a bit. I just don't know. I can't remember much about it. I think that sums up.
I think the other thing is, I'd probably mention, and it's not really a technical thing, but it's billed as having new music written by, Pet Shop Boys and stuff like that. I didn't really hear much of it. It wasn't really life-changing,
No, I think for that, as a gimmick, would have been made to make it be part of something, especially as in the film they would have used the songs from the period anyway.
But they didn't really use any songs in this to give you the image that it's the 80s.
I remember them being some... Well, no, actually, I disagree. I think I remember there being some kind of 80s songs, but no, I don't remember them.
No, that's what I mean. It just didn't, it didn't take you anywhere.
And I don't remember them being it all the way through. I just feel this was used as a spearhead just to show a guy getting his top off and it being about just seeing two guys kissing.
Yeah, it's more style over substance. It's more about the end result, the storyline, isn't really relevant compared to the subject matter, is it?
Yeah, I warmed to the characters in the film where I couldn't do that for the stage.
And I think that's because you couldn't feel that they were in any form of struggle. Like you said, it didn't come across right, did it?
No.
I feel like they rushed some bits to almost get the audience on board, but actually some bits were lost completely in this.
To be honest, I felt that this was a bit laborious. I thought this was my laborious laundrette. I spent 10 hours waiting for my clothes to be washed, and this, it's still on a
and they were just
slow cycle.
They were just washed. There were no fabric softener. There was no nice.
There was no
not
bubbles
ironed.
going
And
on.
It was not. They weren't all pressed and ready to wear, or certainly no tumble dry. They were still damp.
I think if the set was a little different, it might have visually you could concentrate more on what was being said.
Yeah.
Unless that's just me.
No, I get that. I felt the confusion.
It's just distraction.
Yeah, it was too distracting in so many places,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't think it did it justice.
No.
In neither of it. To be honest, I'm not. I don't know. It's like going to The Apprentice, isn't it, and saying who you're going to choose. Well,
exactly.
The person who did the set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It could be down on the writing, but then it could be I don't know.
Could be the directing.
Yeah, I don't know. Which of those three failed the task?
Because I don't feel the actors did a bad job, but they can only do what they can do with what they're given as well.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're
here for the drama. I suppose we touched on. Costumes were. I felt they were of the time. They were 80s style. You got your typical miner's jacket that Johnny was wearing. That was the sort that you'd wear on a building site. Docker jacket. Yeah, you got that. And you'd got the look of the 80s.
Jeans, braces,
yeah,
t-shirts, and
then suits and things for others. Props wise, there was nothing out of place.
No, there was some good use of the props as well.
Yeah, there was.
Like when I suppose it's the TV and the videos, and when they were using that. Are you interjecting or were you just breathing?
I was just breathing.
Oh. What?
One thing I'd say about the props is there was a final scene that really wound me up.
Why? What was that?
When they brought the sink out.
The sink out. Okay, yeah.
Because we've got a sink on wheels that kept being wheeled closer to the front of stage.
Yeah.
That wasn't plumbed in, and it was nowhere near a wall, and it because they kept moving it about, it just took you away from the fact that it's actually just meant to be a fix at the back of the stage. It was more brought forward so that the final tableau just looked good.
Yeah, and I think reminiscent to the film, but I think this is just indicative of what I've just said about trying to get to the end of just it being about two guys kissing.
It's more about the aesthetics of of two men kissing than it was about the actual story, the love story.
Yeah. It's a bit disappointing.
I felt like they recreated the poster so that they could recreate. That's what you got on stage a little bit.
For the opening of the laundrette, they had balloons, hydrogen balloons. Are they hydrogen balloons?
Yeah. Oh well.
They had helium. No.
Helium.
See, you'll just agree with anything I say, which is why I can't trust you. I can't trust you. It's like, did that happen? Yeah, it did. Yeah. So I start talking about that, and then actually, no, it didn't at all. But you've agreed. Okay, so they had helium balloons on little pyramid sticks or whatever, and they brought in champagne and stuff. And that was just basically to represent the
opening of the
laundrette.
And the signage matched the film. The powders signage for the actual new laundrette did actually match the film one.
Yeah, so that we can talk about that in the tech, but yeah, that was probably the best thing about it. They did that right. Although, would you class the movable washing machines as props?
Yeah,
or set pieces?
Sort of.
They're movable, so
yeah.
Are they props or set?
And then we talk about the actors. The actors did what they needed to do.
They turned up.
I wouldn't say they were bad. There was no like bad performances. You know, we were sat at the back and you could hear them all. I didn't think there was anybody, but this was, but I don't think anybody was stumbling or missing lines or cues or anything. Everybody did what they needed.
You think it's not like you say,
What, disengaged?
We're grateful that the audience has turned up. I mean, the actors turned up and actually delivered the lines.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the tech is this?
Right, let's just talk about the tech. Get this over with.
I mean, tech-wise, I think I've seen quite a few productions recently where we're doing a lot of exposed. Where companies tend to do a lot of exposed lighting rigs and lighting stands and things like around the set and stage. It's almost like the new design thing. They did it in.
Is that Morse code?
They did it in Evita. They've done it in Chorus Line. They've done it in.
Where haven't they done it?
Sunset Boulevard in London, and that I can see why they do it, because it's looking architectural and it's looking almost mechanical and
What are you talking about? I've switched off.
the lighting stands and things that are hanging around the stage and the trussing and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies recently that are doing it. It's almost to expand the stage and to raise it above the sort of the acting space. But that can get a little bit distracting if you start doing it a lot, and I think that it'll be nice to see it when they don't do that and actually do something that not every other company are doing at the moment, because it's very easy just to fall into let's just hang that bit of truss in there and let's just fill that space with that, and I think it's less is more sometimes.
We've said that 3 times now on this. Now, do we think that those, what do you call them, trusses with the lights on them, okay, would you think they would have been best if they were like hanging up behind a curtain and then come down?
Yeah,
to
if
show
they
it?
needed to, yeah. Yeah, for me, does it need to be there? I think there's just I think some people think they've got to fill a black space or a dark area,
Well, they could have just been on the back cloth at the back,
yeah,
and we couldn't have even seen them unless they were like lit up.
No, and
they could have just been there already.
I know, and I think that sometimes it's getting a bit of a go-to when with some productions where they're doing it in every one, and it's getting a little bit repetitive now.
I think it's because when they do it like how they have done it, it's already on show. So, like we say at the beginning, when we first see the set, we see everything.
I know, exactly.
We can see behind the concrete at the very back that something's going to come up with the light on. We know because we can see it's waiting to come up.
And I always talk about the things where
Oh, you do you?
I do,
you always talk about it.
I do, don't I?
What do you talk about?
I think sometimes you've got to hide things like a chocolate box. You've got to put things away so they are more of a shock or a surprise, rather than we'll play our hand early, or it's like playing cards, or play all the cards at once. It's like, sometimes you've got to hold the odd one back to make it feel like it does transition into new things. It's like, I think.
Well, it's a reveal, isn't it?
It is, but if you can see all your reveals, like you say, you can see everything in this, And I think I don't understand why we're having to expose all the things on stage every time. They did it. For me, it worked in Billy Elliot. Yeah, because that was exposed stage as well.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of these productions that are all exposed stages. And I just think, sometimes...
But in the confines of this smaller space, when everything is exposed to such a degree, it becomes overpowering.
It does, yeah.
And you've just got a mess of everything that isn't needed, like the trusses and the lights. They're not needed till the very end.
Well, there's 2 trusses with nothing on them at the top.
Yeah.
It's like they're just putting them there for no purpose, just to fill a gap, And I think sometimes you don't always need all that,
Oh, the washing machines, yes, that's right. In the drum, lit up when they were on the walls. So they did have some kind of LED lights in there. And also the washing machines that were like the props or set pieces, the 3 of them, they had colour lights within them as well.
Yeah, they did.
So they They did light up a little bit. And the tones were more like bluish and whites, weren't they?
Yeah, and then right across the
Orange.
back, there was at the bottom of the wall, there was LED strips as well to just enhance, and around the sides of them as well, just to enhance the walls. But
It is what it is.
It is what it is, because there's a lot of sets and theatres that are doing a lot of LED strip work now, so it becomes almost like, do we really need it? You know.
And now it's time for
Rewind, rewatch.
Rewind Rewatch. Richard, what part of this play would you like to rewind and watch again? Oh dear.
Unless it had a rewatch, I'd rewatch it.
Rewrite, rewatch.
But I couldn't.
I like that.
In its current state, I don't think I'd want to watch it again, because the film's better.
Do you know what? I was struggling to find a scene that I would actually like to watch again, and to be honest, I agree with you.
Rewrite,
rewatch. No, no. Actually, I think that's bad. Maybe not a complete rewrite.
No, I think for me, I don't mean it as a complete
Dig.
rewrite. I mean a
re-go at the set. I think. No, I'd rather just watch the film, because the film was just, it had the pacing right and the tones right,
and it had the grit in it. I think that's the other thing. This just didn't have the grit.
Didn't even have washing powder.
No.
I think that it just needs a rethink of the set. I think it's too much for me.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't watch this again.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
Summary, Richard.
I'd say it was a good try at an adaptation of a film, but just not there, just not quite there. That's the way an adaptation that didn't hit it off for me.
Yeah, this is a great one to translate to the stage. I think it could have done really well. It's got a good storyline there. However, I don't think it fulfilled everything. I think things need to change.
Especially the Sync on Wheels.
Sync on Wheels, yeah. I think for me it comes down to the set. I think the set let it down. I don't think it was quite as good as it could have been or should have been. Scores then please, Richard, for My Beautiful Laundrette. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a beautiful portrayal of love and laundry detergent, and 1 being a dirty bag of washing. What's it going to be?
Straight down the middle, I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah, I thought that. But my initial thoughts was going to be a 4. But on reflection, I didn't think it was as bad as I initially thought. But I'd probably say a 5 as well.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
It's got to be a shrug of the shoulders. Because I don't really think anything of this one.
I'm going to give this a... So there we are. That's our discussion of My Beautiful Laundrette. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage, Downstage.
My Beautiful Laundrette is a play by... what is that?
Hanif Qureshi.
Hani Qureshi.
Hanif.
Qureshi. And Chris Lau. Is it Lowe? Directed by Nicole Page Brooks from Atlantic, Georgia.
Behan.
What is that? Nicole. It is Nicole, isn't it? Behan.
Behan.
Nikolai Foster.
Nikolai.
What? Nikolai. Original production. With original production by Nikolai. I don't listen. That right, Nikolai. Nikolai Foster.
Set in South London during the Thatcher years,
Oh, I see. You've got the bigger writing.
after confrontation with a
I didn't understand her specific.
specific. Tanya and Johnny. It was Tanya and Johnny flirt. No. Well,
No, what's
Tanya
the
and
fucking
Omar.
name?
Omar.
I need to just keep this open and not mess about with it.
Omar.
Omar Sharif.
Sharif.
But and it was just a bit of an eyesore that I saw.
Did you see it?
I did. I wish I didn't.
Were your eyes sore?
They were very sore. This one needs to go for another cycle.
I've got it. This washing machine this washing machine. Washer. This washer needs reprogramming for a different cycle.
Now do it with energy. So there we are. That's our discussion of the beautiful. No.